In this video, we will have a look how we can create mouse look and 3D movement as you can see. Okay, so that this will be pretty cool tutorial. Okay, and if you are really new to Unity game engine and C# coding, then you can check out my Udemy course. I have a link in the description. You can go ahead and check that out. Okay, so without furthering delay, so let's dive into this topic. Hierarchy, right click, then to 3D object, then select this cylinder. Let's call this cylinder to player. Okay, player, and if to focus on it, as you can see, let's drag it down to close to the ground. Okay, we have in our scene view our ground, as you can see in the bottom. Okay, let's drag it let's suppose you wanna change the color. Okay, any game object. So what do you need to move over to mesh renderer, and you need to drag a material right over here. Okay, so how you can create a material? To do so, go over to assets. Okay, right click on assets, then create material, and name the material what you want. So let's name this material to player color. Okay, player color. And also let's create firstly let's deal with this, and let's choose a red color, something like that, and select this player game object and drag this material to that slot, says materials element 0. As you can see, now it's turned red. Okay, or what else you can do, you can just directly drag like this. Okay, you can directly drag like this to any game object you want. So let's create a for our ground, let's create a material for our ground. Okay, so move over to asset one more time, right click, create material. Okay, and let's name this material to ground, and okay, ground, and go to color in the inspector. Let's choose a yellow, something like that, and drag this material to that ground. As you can see, now it seems pretty great. Let's select this player, let's drag it down. Okay, little bit in the y-axis. I'm gonna set to x0. Okay, and y to something like, I guess 2 would be pretty fine, not to 1.5. Okay, 1.5 seems pretty close to the ground. And now let's take our main camera and make it child of our player. Okay, so take this main camera and drag it on top of our player game object. Now if I select my player game object, the main camera will also go with it, as you can see. Okay, so select this main camera, right click, and right click on transform and reset the transform, and select this main camera, F2 focus on it. Okay, and let's drag this main camera top of our player game object, something like this. I guess it would be pretty fine. Okay, so let's create a loop script. Okay, let's create a loop script, so we can move our mouse in the x-axis, okay, and in the y-axis. Only two coordinates we can move our mouse, as you can see, in the y-axis and the z-axis we can move our mouse. If we if we move our mouse in the x-axis, we want our player to look around in the scene view. So if we select this player game object, we have to just go to transform, rotation, and y. As you can see, we can look around. So if we just move our mouse in the x-axis, we want our player game object to look around. So basically we need to just go over to this y-axis of player, and we need to rotate around with our mouse x position, wherever the mouse x position facing. Okay, in that direction we will look around. Okay, so I'm gonna set back to 0, and when we move our mouse in the y-axis, so we have to look up and down. We need to move our camera up and down. Okay, something like this. So if we select this player game object, So the problem is that player is also rotating. We don't want our player game object to rotate. We just only want our main camera to follow up and down. Okay, something like that. We want to rotate our main camera up and down. Okay, so I'm gonna set back to this 1 0 again. So if we move to main camera and then play around x rotation, as you can see, we can look up and we can look down. Okay, so basically let's create a loop script. Let's set this one back to 0 and let's go to assets, right click, create C# script and name it to something like mouse look. It's totally up to you what you want to call. And then select this main camera, okay, not the player game object. Select this main camera. So I'm gonna remove this component, select this main camera and drag that script which you created to add component section. So this not one, so the drag this, basically attach that, click on add component and new script and name the script what you want, then create and add and double click that to open up in Visual Studio. Okay, so as you can see, we have start and update function, also this two namespace. Let's remove this, we don't need it for now. Also this start function for we don't need. What we need, we want to rotate our player in the y-axis. Okay, y-axis, if we select this player and just play around with y rotation, we can see player will rotate or player will look around. So basically we need a player transform, as you can see. Okay, so let's go to script and top of our script, let's create a public transform. Okay, public transform, sorry, public, let's create public transform, let's call it player. Okay, and close that off with semicolon. And transform, we know responsible for position, rotation and scale. Okay, and let's go to update function. Over here we will gather some input. Okay, so firstly float mouse x. Okay, mouse, let's call mouse x rotation or mouse x, and let's set equal to input dot get axis, and in quotation you have to type the axis name. So you have to type this mouse x. Okay, so this is a pre-programmed. Okay, this is a pre-program. Let's suppose you want you just move your mouse in the horizontally or in the x-axis. So this mouse x over here, this function will return or give us -1 or +1 depending upon which direction we are just moving our mouse in the x-axis. Okay, let's suppose in the left side, so that will be -1, so the mouse x over here will be -1. Okay, but if we just move our this mouse to the positive side, so this mouse x over here will be +1. Okay, and also let's do the same thing for y-axis. If we move our mouse cursor in the y-axis up and down, so let's gather some input. So float, let's call mouse y. Okay, let's set this one equal to input dot get axis, and in quotation you have to type this mouse y. Basically this is a pre-programmed. Okay, this is pre-programmed. So if you move the mouse in the y-axis, so in the positive side that will be 1. If you move your mouse in the down side, so this mouse or y over here will be -1. Okay, so if we want to move our mouse in the x-axis, we want player rotation in the y-axis, y-axis to be rotated. So as you seen, if we play around y-axis or player rotation, in the y-axis player is looking around, and we will just sorry for the noise. This I apologize, really apologize for that. So if we move our mouse in the x-axis, we want our player rotation in the y-axis to look around. Basically we need to play around with y-axis. So we have a reference, as you can see, player transform. So let's go to bottom. Over here what we will do, so basically we want to rotate. So player, okay, player dot rotate function we have to use, and in the x we don't want, and if at comma in the y axis we will put this mouse x. Okay, depending upon which direction we moving our mouse cursor. If the mouse cursor going to the left side or the left direction, so player will look around to from the left side. Okay, something like that. So in the y axis we will put mouse x. Okay, sorry, mouse x, and for z axis let's put 0. We don't want that in the z axis. So as you can see, mouse x. Okay, so let's suppose we move our mouse cursor in the left side. So this one over here will be -1. So the player rotate to the left side. Okay, from the left side, so player will rotate in the left side. And if we move our mouse cursor to the positive side, so player will rotate to the positive side. Okay, so we also want to control this speed. Okay, so let's create up a speed variable. Let's go to top of our class. Let's make a public float. Let's call rotation speed or mouse sensitivity, you can call. I'm gonna call rotation speed, and let's by default get give 100 f, basically 100 unit, and let's multiply this mouse x with our rotation speed. Okay, rotation speed, and also multiply that with time dot delta time to make frame rate independence. Okay, make sure that multiply that time dot delta time to make frame rate independence, and control s to save your code. And now let's move to Unity, and make sure in main camera script, oh sorry, in mouse look script you drag the reference of player transform, or it will not work. Okay, basically we need a reference of the player transform, then we can just look around in the y-axis. Okay, so just wait for to compile, and if we select this main camera, as you can see mouse look player transform says none. So let's select this player and drag it out there. Now we have player transform. Let's hit this play button, and if we just move our mouse in the x-axis, we will able to see player will rotate in that direction, as you can see. Okay, so that is the cool thing. And now what we want to do, we want to move this main camera. Okay, main camera in the x-axis. If we play around main camera x rotation, as you can see we can look up and down. Okay, basically we need to add some value, or we can subtract. If we subtract, as you can see, we can look up. If we just add, we can look down. Okay, just we need to play around with this x-axis or x rotation of our main camera. So let's go to top script one more time, and let's go to top of our class. Let's create a public float, and let's call this one x rotation. Okay, x rotation, and by default let's give it to 0f. By default, as you can see right over here, this one will be 0, so that's why 0. And over time we want to subtract. Okay, what we want to subtract, if we move our mouse cursor in the y-axis, so we just want to subtract from this x rotation of player, something like this. If we subtract, as you can see, we can look up. Basically if we move if we just move our mouse cursor in the y-axis up, so the mouse over here, this value will be 1. Okay, and what we want to do, we want to subtract from x rotation. Okay, x rotation minus equal this y. Okay, sorry, this mouse y, sorry, mouse y, and close that up with semicolon, as you can see. And this mouse y will over here be +1 -1, depending upon which what we doing. If we moving up our mouse cursor in the y-axis, okay, so this mouse y over here will be 1, and if we move down, so this will be sorry, if we move up, this will be 1. So if we move down, that will be +1. So this over here will be +1, and we just subtracting relatively our mouse okay, we just subtracting our mouse position with our x rotation. Basically whatever if we moving up. Okay, So this one over here will be 1, so we subtracting from x rotation 1, so this one over here will be 1, something like that. So we will look up if we just move one mouse cursor a little bit way more up, then as you can see the over here this will be sorry, this will be, as you can see, it will look way more up. Okay, so that is the catch. And we also want to control the speed, we know, so let's multiply this mouse y with rotation speed. Okay, and also multiply that with time dot delta time to make frame rate independence. Okay, independence. And now in the next line what we want to do, we want to set the transform dot local rotation basically means over here rotation of our main camera. Okay, let's set equal to quaternion dot Euler. Okay, Euler, and this will take three angles or vector 3, as you can see. So we will pass over here x rotation as a x. Okay, so if we just play around with x axis of our main camera x rotation, we can see the player will look up and down. Okay, something like this. So that is the catch. So we want to replace this x with our x rotation. Okay, x rotation, and this x rotation will depend upon which direction we moving our mouse cursor in the y-axis. Okay, if we moving down, then we will look down, and if we moving up our mouse cursor, then we will look up. Okay, so that is the catch. And let's pass 0f in the y and 0f in the z. We don't want to move our camera in the z axis or y axis. Okay, so control s on your keyboard to save your code. Now let's move to unity. We should able to see if we move our y mouse cursor in the y axis, we will look up, and if we move our mouse cursor in the x axis down, sorry, y axis in the down, we will look down, the main camera will look down. Okay, so that is the catch. So let's hit this play button, and we should able to see that right away. Okay, so and you can control the speed, rotation speed right over here. It's totally up to you. As you can see, we can look down, we can look up, and we can look around. But the problem is we can look way more further, just like player just get flip, you can say, or the main camera just get flip. We don't want that. We want to restrict at some amount. We want to look down something like 2 feet, and in the something like minus plus 90 degree. Okay, so if we minus 90 degree will be way more up. Okay, minus 90, and if we put 90, so it will be down. So we want to restrict the x rotation about between these angles. Okay, we should not look way more farther up and way more farther down. Okay, so that is the catch. So before we rotate our main camera in x-axis, okay, we want to clamp the value. The value we want to clamp is x rotation. So let's set equal to method dot clamp, and over here as a first argument it will take the value or the which one you want to adjust or wanna clamp the value. Okay, so in our case this x rotation we want to clamp. So let's pass as a first argument x rotation and comma, and it will take the minimum is 90, which we looking down, or sorry, minimum is minus 90, which will be looking up, all the way up. We don't want to move minus 91, we don't want to look further of minus 90 degrees. Okay, so that is the catch. So let's put minus 90f and 90f in the down. Okay, and close the output semicolon, control s to save your code. Let's move to unity. Now we should able to see that we won't able to look further up. Okay, something like about 90 degree, we not gonna able to look way more 90 degree in the up. Okay, minus 90, we should able to see that, right? So just wait for to compile, and when it's done, hit this play button and you're gonna able to see that. Okay, so if I look way up, as you can see, the camera is not going further 90 and further 90 in the down direction. So that is the goal. Okay, now we need to move our player game object. Okay, to move player game object, so let's select this player game object. Let's add up a character controller. Okay, character controller, you can say, is a motor to drive our player. Okay, we will use that component is responsible for driving our player game object. So let's add that up. So character controller, okay, and attach that over here. You can specify, okay, so as you can see, and we need to create a this character controller will take a direction in which direction you want to go. Okay, so let's create a player movement script which will just wanna specify the direction we want to move. So let's go to assets one more time, right click, create C# script, name it to something like player movement, and select this player game object and attach that script. Okay, drag the script to this add component section, or what else you can do, click on add component, new script, name the script something like player movement, then create an add and double click that to open up in Visual Studio. And let's remove these two namespaces in the top, we don't need it. Also this start function, we don't need it for now, so let's remove that. Instead what we need, we will gather some information. Okay, information in update function. Okay, so we want to move our player game object, so hold down alt, and if you move your mouse cursor you can look around in the scene view. We want to move our player game object in the z axis, as you can see, in the z axis, in the x axis. We don't want to move our player game object in the y axis, which will be the up. Okay, so we only want player game object to move z axis and the x axis, as you can see. Okay, so let's go to script, and over here let's gather some input. So firstly will be float, let's call this one x movement. Okay, and let's set this equal to input dot get axis. Get axis in quotation, we have to pass the axis name, so let's pass horizontal. Okay, the horizontal, so and close that off with semicolon. So this one over here will be just horizontal, okay, in the x axis. So this input, and this is also an pre-programmed code. So this over here function will return us -1 or +1 depending upon which key we are holding down. Let's suppose we holding down a key, so this one right over here will give us -1. So this one over x movement will be -1. And let's suppose we hold down d key, so this one over here will be +1, basically 1. So this x movement will be 1. Also let's gather the z movement. So let's call z movement. Okay, z movement, and let's set this equal to input dot get axis, and we have to pass the axis name. So in this case we will pass vertical. Okay, so vertical, and close that off with semicolon. So this function also a pre-programmed, and this function over here will return us +1 or -1 depending upon what key we holding down. Let's suppose we holding down a w key. Okay, so this function over here give us +1 or 1. So the z movement right over here would be 1. Okay, and if we hold down s key, so this one over here will give us -1. So the z movement right over here will give us -1. Okay, so let's create a vector 3, basically the direction where we want to go. So let's create a vector 3. Okay, let's call this move. Okay, player move, let's call it player move. And you can set a equal to like this. Okay, something like new vector 3. Okay, vector 3, and you can pass 3 axis right over here, but it will be global coordinate, but we want local coordinate, basically in the direction player is looking, in that direction we want to go. If we hold down w key, so we will go up. Okay, straight forward, we want to go that direction. Okay, to do that, what we need to gather, so transform dot right. Okay, transform dot right over here means the direction player is facing, basically horizontally. So this one, okay, in the x-axis, transform dot right, basically this direction will be transform dot right. Okay, and top and we will multiply that direction if we holding down a or w key, so we will just move just side by side. Okay, so we will multiply with that our x movement. Okay, x movement, let's suppose we hold down a key, so the x movement over here will be -1. So -1, so this one will, this x movement in the x-axis will be -1, so it will go to the negative side. Okay, side by side horizontally, you can say. Okay, and if you hold down a d key, so this one over here will be 1. Okay, and top of it, if we hold down w key, so we want to go straight forward to that direction player is looking. So as you can see, player in the camera is looking in basically forward, so in that direction we want to go. If we hold down w key, so we will go to straight forward to that direction, and if we hold down s key, so we want to go backward in that direction. Okay, so that is the catch. So top of it we will add, if we just so transform dot forward, we have to type, basically means that the player is facing which direction. Basically player is looking, so player is looking straight forward in the main camera, as you can see right over here. So we will go to that direction if we hold down w key, and if we hold down s key, we will go backward. Okay, so that is the catch. And so let's multiply this transform dot forward, basically the direction, with our z movement. And we know this z movement can be -1 or +1 depending upon what key we holding down on our keyboard. Let's suppose we hold down w key, so this z movement will be 1, so we will go straight forward. And if we hold down s key, so that will be -1, so we will go that direction but in backward. Okay, we will look toward that direction. And we need to move. Now we need a reference of player controller to move our player game object in the direction we specified right over here. As you can see, player move, we created a vector 3, which means the direction we want to go. Okay, so basically we need a reference of this controller. Okay, character controller, then we can move. So let's go to top of our class. Let's create a public character controller. Okay, controller, let's call it controller. Okay, and close that up with semicolon. Let's go to our script, and let's go to controller. Okay, controller, and dot, we have to use this move function. And move function, it will take the direction you want to go. So as you can see, we created the direction or vector 3. As you can see, vector 3 motion. Okay, so let's pass over here player move, basically the direction we want to go. And let's also multiply with some unit. Okay, so we want how much fast we want to go. So let's go to top of our class. Okay, and let's create a public float speed parameter. Let's call it public float move speed. Okay, move speed, and let's by default give it 10 unit, 10f. And let's multiply this player move with our 10f. Oh sorry, not 10f, this move speed. And also multiply this one time dot delta time to make frame rate independence. Okay, so let's multiply with time dot delta time to make frame rate independence, and close that off with semicolon. Control S to save your code. Now let's move to Unity, and we should able to see we in which direction we looking. In that direction we will go. If we hold down w key, so we will go that direction. Okay, so if I hit this play button in the top, and if I just hold down a or d key, so we will move side by side. And if we hold down w or s key, we will look we will go up and down. Okay, so the problem is that we haven't dragged the reference right over here. As you can see, controller, it says none. So select this controller and drag it up there. Basically we have now reference of it. Let's hit this play button one more time and see the result, what's really happening. Okay, so we would able to see, if we hold down a or d key, we will go side by side, the player is facing. Okay, So as you can see, basically x axis, as you can see, we just going side by side. But if we hold down w key, as you can see, we going the direction we are looking, okay, in that direction. And if we hold down both of these key, as you can see, we just moving around the scene view. So that is the cool thing. I hope you get the idea, basics idea of how you can just move your first FPS game in 3 FPS game. Okay, you want to move your player game object. So I hope you get the idea of it. Okay, so the next thing we have to cover up gravity and the jump of our player game object. Okay, and lastly, thanks for watching this video. Goodbye.